Shalom, my name is Brother Dawa Bey in Israel, and I am the host of the Yah Israel Hour. And the title of this show today is going to be What's Going On. We're going to be talking about the situation in the schools, what's going on with our children. I have a brother here, guest, who flew in all the way from Philly, Dr. Umar Abdullah Johnson. He's a nationally known psychologist. He's here with me today. I want to welcome the brother.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here in Chicago with you.
Appreciate it, brother. So this is a live call-in show. So the number that we can be reached at is 312-738-1845. 312-738-1845. So I want the doc, without further ado, I want the doc to go ahead and tell a little bit about himself.
I am a nationally certified school psychologist, and my job is to decide which children goes into special education. School psychology is a certain type of psychology. When most people think of psychology, they think of clinical psychology, which we'll probably talk about a little bit as we go into the ADHD and the psychotropic drug movement against black boys. But a school psychologist is unique because we work in the schools, and we don't primarily do therapy, although many of us are trained to. Our job is to decide who has the learning disability, who is retarded, who is emotionally disturbed, who needs special education. So it is special ed law that basically provides a job for school psychologists. And special education has a unique history that grows out of the 1954 Brown versus Board of Education decision. In 1954, when the Supreme Court said that race no longer could be used as a factor in education, white supremacy had to come up with a new strategy to resegregate black from white. So 21 years later, special education was born in 1975. There was no special education in America, not on the federal level, until 1975. And it is not by coincidence that special education comes right after the Civil Rights Act, when forced integration of schools was supported by the federal government or forced by the federal government. So special ed became necessary. So we can no longer keep black kids from white kids because they were black. We would now just say that they have a learning disability.
Wow. You know, I noticed when I was in school, in high school in Michigan, I noticed that most of the people or the children that were in special ed was boys, men,
Yes.
males.
Yes.
Now, what's going on with that? Is there a connection there?
Oh, without a doubt. Whenever you want to miseducate a population, special education becomes the direct route. And there's no population in America that is as marginalized as the black boy or the black male. And in fact, in my position, there are basically 5 stages of extermination that this society has developed to deal effectively with black men. The first stage is miseducation, the school itself. Without miseducation, there's no such thing as jail. Without miseducation, there's no such thing as economic castration. Without miseducation, there is no wholesale homicide. Okay, miseducation is essential in order for oppression to really deal with the black male problem that they have here in America. Miseducation has 3 primary components. Number 1, to teach the black boy to hate himself. Number 2, to teach the black boy to love white people. And number 3, to effeminize and, if possible, homosexualize the black boy. Those are the 3 main goals of education: teaching of self-hate, teaching of white love, and to effeminize or homosexualize the black male, which means to break his spirit. And one of the reasons why so many of our boys drop out of school is because the way they are treated. I always say there's no such thing as a black male dropout rate. There's only a black male push-out rate. Our boys are pushed out of school by the treatment they get from a predominant female teacher base and a predominantly white female teacher base. You have to understand, public education is the coming together of middle-class white women and poor black boys. Middle-class white women and poor black boys. 2 populations that this society, for most of its history, have tried to keep apart. So a white woman generally has a fear and a contempt for the black male. How can you teach someone if you fear him or hate him or is not safe in his company? So if we want to improve the education of black boys, then they're going to have to be taught by black men.
Damn. Man, that sounds excellent. Excellent. I totally agree. You know, I myself have a vision or visualize myself being in charge of some type of school. But, you know, it's like, where's the funding at? Where's the funding for a brother? Is there any funding out there for a brother that wanted to do something on a revolutionary level? I don't want to deal with no crackers, period. I just want to deal with our own students and get that mind back to where it's supposed to be. Because all that self-hate, man, it's ridiculous that we got out here.
Exactly. There's basically 4 types of schools you can have. You can have a religious institution, a public school, a charter school, or a private school. Now, religious schools are the most free of all of those 4 types I just named. Okay, if you have a religious school, then the oversight by the State Department of Education is minimal because it's religious. They have the most power in terms of educating their own. Public schools and charter schools, which are a form of public schools, constant oversight, okay? Private schools, which is like what your brother Marcus Klein is doing here in Chicago, that's the best route to go, because a private school, for many intents and purposes, is almost like an independent country. You get to set your own laws. Now, there's certain federal and state mandates you have to follow, but you have a lot more control over the day-to-day operation of your school. And I think as a community, we have to look at private schools to properly educate our black boys. There's no way we can leave them in public schools and charter schools and expect them to be the type of men we need them to be. The primary goal of public education is to socialize. The primary goal of education is to socialize. I always say that your son probably can't read, but he knows the Pledge of Allegiance. Can't write his name, but he knows the Star Spangled Banner. Okay, can't do math, but he knows who George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and Abraham Lincoln was, although all 3 of them were anti-African presidents. So the purpose of public education is to socialize. And that is one of the biggest reasons why we have this great homosexual threat, because now, as a population control measure, they are socializing black children to be lesbian and homosexual as a strategy to reduce the birth rate in the black community. Homosexuality is not being pushed as a cultural revolution. Homosexuality is being pushed as black population control to convince an entire generation of black children to have sex with people of like gender. Why? Because if I can convince black boys to cohabitate with black boys, and if I can convince black girls to cohabitate with black girls, then what do I do to the black population rate, the birth rate? I cut it in half. Same thing with prison. The mass incarceration of black men, which is a function of miseducation, is being done to control the black population rate. When a black male is incarcerated, and when he is incarcerated during his prime years, from about 18 until 38, then what you are also doing is not only incarcerating him, but you are incarcerating the 2 babies that he would have had he not been incarcerated. Oh. Everything that's done must be viewed as a population control strategy. Everything that's done is population control. Even when you look at the welfare laws that were put into effect in the black community, many of them forced the woman to separate from the man in order to get certain types of assistance. Everything is about controlling our numbers. So whether it's AIDS, whether it's Ebola, whether it's special ed, whether it's Ritalin, whether it's jail, whether it's homosexuality, everything is about exterminating the black gene. Eugenics means the extermination of the black gene. Not the poor black gene or the rich black gene. Not the light-skinned black gene or the dark-skinned black gene. Not the educated black gene or the uneducated black gene. It is about the extermination of all of us, which is why bourgeois, elitist, middle-class Negroes have the wrong idea, because many of them believe that if they accommodate the system will spare them. Yes, the system will spare them until the end, because they need them in order to exterminate the masses. But once the masses are exterminated, you can best believe that the elitist clique is next to follow. White supremacy does not put black people in groups. It is for the extermination of all of us.
Well said.
I agree with you. I also believe that the religious institutions have a lot to do with how we've gotten in the condition that we're in, but I also think that they have a lot to do with why we stay in the condition that we're in. For example, when you look at most inner cities, you have churches, masjids, and religious temples on almost every corner. But if you were to do a survey to find out how many of those religious institutions offer a free academic enrichment program to African American children who have delayed skills, almost none of them do. And the ones that do, they only do it because they get grant money from the local, state, or federal government to do that. Unfortunately, our religious institutions are just as selfish as individual black people have become, and they're not really interested in helping our children unless someone's going to give them money for it. It bothers me how we can have children in church on Sunday learning about Jesus, but yet they can't even read Jesus in the Bible. Or children who go to the mosque on Friday learning about Muhammad, but they can't even read his name in the Quran. My point to the religious institutions, and I don't have a problem with religion. I don't see anything wrong with them. In fact, sometimes they can be a benefit. Okay, they can be a benefit, but religion is neutral. Any institution is neutral. It's how it's used. Religion was used to help fight for the end of slavery, but religion today is being used to re-enslave the African mind. So the problem with religion is that its scope is limited. It's no longer what it used to be to the community. 100 years ago, you could go to the church in order to get a job. You can go to the church if you had social issues. You can go to the church if you had run-ins with the law and if your rights were impeded upon. Unfortunately, today, the church is only prepared with helping black people get ready for heaven, but they're totally content with allowing black people to exist in political hell every day.
Great, well said.
But sister, one thing we got to understand, and I totally agree with your comments, whenever you want to control a people, there's three institutions that are absolutely necessary to control and dominate any people. Number one, you must control the school. Number two, you must control the church. And number three, you must control the military. Those are the three most important institutions in any community. So when you look at the black community, obviously, we don't have our own community police force. So that's totally controlled by Europeans. Then when you look at the church, that's also totally controlled by Europeans. We tend to look at the mosque and look at the church and say that these are black institutions. No, they're not. The process, the mindset, the ideology is totally European. We don't have an African-centered form of Islam, and we don't have an African-centered form of Christianity. We got European and Arab forms of religion that are simply being managed by black personalities. Religion is the most political institution in the black community. It always has been. When slavery began, it was done through the church. When the missionaries came into Africa to subdue and colonize, they did it through the church. Whenever the enemy wants to get a stronghold in the black community, they call up the clergy. They call up the imams. They call up other religious leaders who they know will push forward their program. There is nothing non-religious about the church. The church and the mosque are totally religious. And in fact, one of the reasons why black people are being so successfully oppressed and subdued in this country is because many of the people who stand at the pulpit are afraid. They are afraid to do the work that they claim they were sent here by God to carry out.
Excellent, excellent.
As far as homosexuality goes, we have to understand that the movement to homosexualize black children, and particularly the males, began in 1972. The Rockefeller World Population Council, along with Planned Parenthood International, and yes, I'm talking about the same Planned Parenthood that was started by eugenicist Margaret Sanger to open up abortion clinics near the black community to reduce the black population. 85% of all Planned Parenthood abortion centers are located in satellite areas adjacent to the black community. In fact, it's been estimated that since the birth of Planned Parenthood in the 1900s, that black people have exterminated more than 3 million of their own children. When we hear these conversations about Hispanics taking over as the largest ethnic group, that's only because Hispanics tend not to kill their children as much as black people do. And the reason why we kill our children so often is because of the self-hate. But getting back to homosexuality, the Rockefeller World Population Council and Planned Parenthood decided that homosexuality must no longer be viewed as a mental disorder. Up until 1972, homosexuality was listed in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. That's the Bible of psychology and psychiatry. Everything we diagnose is in that book. And if you are a parent, you should have a copy of it. You can get it at any bookstore. It's a little silver book with blue letters, DSM-4, okay? And what they decided was that had to come out. Up until 1972, homosexuality was a mental disorder. At the American Psychiatric Convention in 72 or 73, the homosexuals were able to infiltrate the movement and was able to encourage the psychiatrists to vote to remove homosexuality from the list. So homosexuality has only been normal in America for about 35 years. Once they decided that homosexuality would no longer be abnormal, it was then decided that it would be pushed into the black public schools to control our population. In fact, Secretary of State Henry Kissinger in 1974, look at the dates, 72, Rockefeller World Population Council and Planned Parenthood said we got to change things. 73, they take it out of the DSM. It's no longer abnormal behavior. 74, Henry Kissinger in a National Security Memorandum said that we should consider homosexuality as a population control strategy in the black community. And that is right now, that's one of the reasons why President Obama's Secretary of Education from Chicago, Arne Duncan, is a supporter of homosexuality. In fact, the person who President Obama appointed as the Safe Schools and Drug-Free Schools czar right now wants a mandatory kindergarten through 12th grade homosexual curriculum in every public school in America. Now, we know that homosexuality has roots in Greco-Roman philosophy and culture. Many of the Greek philosophers were homosexual. Many of the Roman philosophers were homosexual. Julius Caesar was homosexual. Napoleon was a homosexual. Most white psychologists teach that homosexuality is a natural adolescent male behavior, which is why I always encourage black parents, do not send your son to a white therapist or a black one unless you know their sexual orientation, because many of our children are getting psychotherapy from homosexuals who are propagating the lifestyle. Homosexuality is being pushed to exterminate the community. They make the boys gay, they inject them with HIV, they inject it into our sisters while they're cohabitating, and that is why HIV is the #1 killer of black women on the face of the earth. They're giving AIDS to the gay men, and we're giving it to our queens. Black population control.
Man, the situation in these schools. Let's talk. I got a call on the line. Caller, just please hold on. Don't hang up. I want the doc to address something right quick. I want you to talk about this here Ritalin and this ADHD situation and this stuttering with our children. What's going on with that?
Okay. The psychotropic drug movement against black boys is the 21st century form of COINTELPRO. The same COINTELPRO that J. Edgar Hoover headed in the 60s, or going from the 20s to the 60s, because he started with the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey and didn't stop until he exterminated the Panther movement. But nonetheless, the drug movement comes out of that. It is a movement of social control to prevent the rise of another black messiah. In fact, back in the 1980s, there was a movement called the Federal Anti-Violence Initiative. If you remember, back in the 80s, there was a lot of attention being given to the allegation that black males had a gene that predisposed us to be violent. In other words, we wasn't violent because of racism. We wasn't violent because of miseducation. We weren't violent because of economic castration. We weren't violent because our fathers was being locked up and killed and taken from us. We was violent because we was born with a gene that made us this way. So because of the outcry from the black community, that movement went underground. It came back as attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. It came back as conduct disorder. It came back as oppositional defiant disorder. It came back as disruptive behavior disorder. Partly pushed by the federal government, partly pushed by the American Psychiatric and Psychological Association, and partly pushed by the drug companies. One thing we have to understand about these so-called disruptive behavior disorders, they are all social creations. There's nothing scientific about ADHD. There's nothing scientific about conduct disorder. These are diseases that our children are diagnosed with when they don't freely accept white supremacy. See, if I can't sit still because the information you've given me, I know is not what my spirit needs, I'm ADHD. If I don't allow you to disrespect me and belittle me in your classroom, I have a conduct disorder. If I refuse to sit still and hear negative information about myself and my ancestors, I have oppositional defiant disorder. These disorders are the outgrowth of a defunct educational system. And the drug companies are making $40 billion a year off of doping black boys with drugs that kill their brain cells, mess with heart function, mess with their kidneys, mess with their liver, and, Brother Dawa, most of these drugs also affect the development of healthy semen in the boy's testicles. So if you're giving a black boy Ritalin or Adderall or Cyclert or Prozac or Depakote or Paxil or any of the other ones from age of 3 or age of 5 to the age of 21, when he's ready to get married and have children, many of them won't be able to have children because the drug erodes their ability to father a child. It all goes back to eugenics. In fact, Ritalin, according to the Drug Enforcement Agency of America, is a Schedule II drug. You know what that means? No. It's just as addictive as crack cocaine. The DEA has Ritalin. Anybody who don't believe me, do your own research. The DEA classifies Ritalin as Schedule II, as addictive as crack. In fact, Ritalin is pharmacologically equivalent to speed. The illegal drug speed and Ritalin have the same chemical structure. Some drugs are legal, some drugs are illegal, but they're all being used to decimate the community.
Damn. Man, that's some powerful, powerful knowledge. All y'all out there, make sure that you get in contact with me. You need to get this DVD. As a matter of fact, I got to look at it over and over again to try to absorb all the information that the brother is dropping. And this is just like I like it, hot and heavy. This information, I've been trying to give you bits and pieces over the years. I've been telling our people about this homosexuality in these goddamn schools. We have got to develop a program where we pull our children up out these schools. There's no other way. They have got to come up out of the education of an oppressor. The damn oppressor can never educate you to free you. All he's going to educate you to do is to work for him to keep his system going. That's what you have to get. And the sisters, you got to overstand this position, what the cracker is at. He does not want us to liberate ourselves, to be free. He wants to continue to control us. That's what you have to understand. You can't let your child go sit at a damn daycare center all day while you run the street or do whatever else you got to do. You can't do it. You're destroying, you're helping this cracker destroy our seed.
Men like you deserve 9 wives because we need to breed with people like you. We need to put real children out here again, kids that we know are going to have everything they need for this type of world that we live in.
Powerful, sister. Thank you.
Now you just dropped the bomb. Now you opened up another window there, another door. That is a fact. And I'm going to say, I said this before, I did shows like this before. It takes a certain type of man that's going to have to mix with more than one woman. I know a lot of times people don't want to hear that, but at the condition that we're in right now, you got a lot of brothers in prison. Let's just keep it real now. A lot of brothers that's going in prison mixing with each other, and they're coming up out of these prisons, brother, and they mixing with our women. Just like you said, they come out, they get injected with AIDS, and they come out of the prison, and they start mixing with sisters, and they're giving the sisters AIDS.
Yes.
That's another issue. Now you got the homosexuals that's not in prison, all right? Then you got the brothers out here that's not in prison, not homosexual, but their mentals is all messed up. So the pool of men that can create great warriors and leaders in different areas and categories of life is very small.
Exactly.
So if we want to continue the population, you don't have no choice, sister.
Yes.
You're going to have to decide that you are going to take a male and that's going to be with several females. I'm just sorry. The sister put it out there, and I had to go there. We ain't talking about that, but we will talk about that later on in another show. If you want to make a comment on that, go ahead.
Definitely.
She addressed you.
2 things. Number 1, we already have light skin supremacy in the black community. Light skin supremacy is the rule of order for blacks. In other words, white supremacy, which is the parent of light skin supremacy, dictates that those who are of lighter hue must rule those who are of darker hue. That doesn't mean that if you're light skinned, you're a light skin supremacist. It just means that many of our light skinned brothers and sisters, not most or all, but many, do believe in light skin supremacy. And if you ascribe to light skin supremacy, you also believe in white supremacy, because that is where the foundational ideology comes from. So if I'm a light-skinned supremacist and I believe myself to be better than a brother who's darker, I must also, by default, believe that the white man is better than me. But along with light-skinned supremacy, there is a homosexual supremacy that's coming into the black community now. In fact, over the next 10 or 20 years, most black men in public office, most black men who are instructors on the collegiate level, most black men of influence and so-called power will be homosexual. The sister said it best, that the white man does not fear an effeminate black man.
Hold on. Say that again.
Yes, indeed. You're going to see the rule of homosexual supremacy in the black community. In other words, any black man of substance over the next 10 to 20 years must by necessity be a homosexual. If he's not, he will not be allowed to ascend within the power structure.
Damn.
Because the white man does not fear effeminate or homosexual black men. Because, and for all intents and purposes, the homosexual and effeminate black man is the white man's bitch, excuse my French.
No, go ahead.
And so we have to understand that. And that also means that when we raise our boys, we got to raise them as men. And one thing we have to understand, the reason why black women are mistreating the boys is because they are displacing the anger and rage and frustration that they have for the father onto the boy. And so what happens is he becomes, okay, the object of ridicule. She doesn't even know she's doing it unconsciously. But when she looks at him, all she sees is the father who did her wrong. And unfortunately, by mistreating her son, guess what? She keeps the cycle. It perpetuates because now he begins to scorn black women by the way his mother treated him.
Right.
So the cycle continues. See, the problem with the black community is that we continue the same failing cycles. Every time a new African baby is born, we have a chance to rewrite history. Every time a baby comes out. The problem is we don't raise the baby no differently than we was raised. So if I'm on drugs, now my son on drugs, my grandson on drugs. I'm a homosexual, my son's a homosexual, my great-grandson's a homosexual, because it takes a lot of willpower and spiritual inclination to change what was done to us. And one of the reasons why black people continue to suffer the same sickness that we've been suffering since the end of slavery is because we are so interested in changing our environment, but we refuse to change ourselves. Every black man and woman has within them a small white man and a small white woman inside of you. We all have it by virtue of the conditioning. And in order for us to become African again, we have to exercise the demon of the enemy. Until we take the white man out of us, we'll never be free. You can take you out of slavery, but if you don't take the slave out of your consciousness, you will always be one. And that's why no matter how often we fight, no matter how often we struggle, we end up with the same milieu. Because although we're fighting the outside, nobody's killing the white man inside.
Damn. It's just like I told one of my partners, I said, you know, in the back of our sister's mind is a little white man. And every thought that comes across her mind, on left side, right side of the brain, makes no difference. He had to analyze. In the back of her mind, subconsciously, he's there analyzing it. And if it sounds foreign to what she's been brought up on, she will totally reject it. And she will reject us too. Just because that thought process in the back of her mind is bent on slavery and keeping us slaves.
Indeed.
Damn, that's deep. Shalom, brother, shalom.
One thing we got to understand about white supremacy, the power comes from making it look like their rule is the natural order of things. Let me say that again. The strength of white supremacy is that they're able to make everybody believe that it is nature's order for them to rule. And as a result of that, they have convinced black people that it is natural for us not to rule. The reason why we have such a difficult time getting educated, finding jobs, holding jobs is because we're trying to be successful in a system that is designed for your failure. You can't get water out of a rock, and you're not going to get black success out of white supremacy. Now, the contradiction in all of this is the fact that black people annually gross over $850 billion a year. We're the 10th richest group on the face of the earth. We don't own anything but the cash. We're the 10th richest group on the face of the earth. We are the richest black group on the globe. There is no group of blacks, black people in America, although we are only 40 million strong, gross more cash than any independent black nation on the face of the earth. The problem is we use all of our residual and disposable income to have fun, to keep my hair done, to get a nice car, to buy a bigger house, to wear nice clothes. We act like overgrown children who take their allowance and run to the candy store. And the reason why we do that is because slavery has taught us that we will forever be the children of white people, so we will allow our slave master to take care of the important decisions, and we will use our income to have fun. Churches get $3 billion every Sunday. $3 billion goes into the church tray every Sunday in America. With that type of money, you could be building 10 comprehensive high schools every month. 10 comprehensive high schools every month. There's no reason for a single black child in America to have to go to a defunct public school. There's no reason why black men don't have jobs. We have the economic ability to create an independent reality. Indians from India do it, Chinese do it, even the Arabs do it. Every ethnic group in America, including Hispanics, have an independent reality except Negroes. Why? Because we are scared of white people and we hate ourselves. Until we deal with the self-hatred that exists within the black community, we'll never be whole. The reason why we don't have black businesses is because two black people coming together will not trust each other. Psychologically, unconsciously, I assume you're going to rip me off. You assume I'm going to rip you off. So the minute something goes wrong, as it always will in any business, we part company. You know why? Because we've been conditioned not to trust our brother.
Exactly. Right. We got a few minutes left on the line. I want you to put up this brother's contact information so people can contact this brother personally if they want to talk to the brother. The brother's available for lectures at different churches, different types of function that you may have. Y'all can meet him today and come out to this thing that we're going to be having. The brother going to be doing a free screening for the young black boys. Bring the children out. Sisters come out, bring your babies. Brothers come out, support your babies and your lady. We got to get this thing together. Revolution is the only answer. There ain't no other answer. We got to revolutionize all this talking about trying to integrate and all. We got to cut that out. We got to separate completely from this European and detox ourselves, detox our damn mind so we can get on the right path. Now I want you to put my information up there so people can contact me too. We get ready to go out, and I want you to let the callers go ahead and speak.
Peace.
Go ahead, brother.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
My brother, man, I just want to. Can you hear me? I was on the. I was turned on the tube and hear two brothers speak with such passion and strength, man. I was drawn to you, off to a flame. I don't want to take too much time. What I would like to do is just get the information with this brother, man, because I'm a father of 3 boys myself and a family of a nation, and connect to some of this life source, man, so I can leave something for my legacy. To yet position myself to do some work that needs to be done, because I'm tired of talking.
I'm with you. I'm tired of talking too. Now it's time to start acting. And I don't care who's looking. I know white folks is looking, and CIA, FBI. I'm not even worried about that. Because if you're not ready at some point to give your life for your children, you don't need to live no damn way. And at this point in time, I'm ready to do what needs to be done. So I'm talking to the nation. I ain't talking about the nation of Islam. You know what I mean when I say nation. You young brothers out there that they call urban terrorists that are not, I want you to contact me. We can get together with this brother, other brothers with like mine. We're going to do this. Because I'm going to tell you one thing. They can't take us all out. They can't do it. But revolution is, there ain't no other solution. Any more callers on the line?
Hello?
Go ahead, sister. Got about 1 minute.
Okay, brother. I appreciate you letting me get on, so I'm going to try to make it short. I just got a question, if you can answer it right quick. Why are we hated so much? I always wanted to know that, point blank.
I'll let the brother carry it out.
African people are hated because historically you have succeeded the world in every area. Everyone knows who we are except ourselves. Every science, every discipline was created by African people. But not only that, Africa is the richest piece of land on the face of the earth. It is the only continent that can be totally self-subsistent without any outside help. So the reason you are hated is because everyone knows your potential, because they know your history except you. And once we finally come into a knowledge of ourselves and go back to where God originally put us at, everybody else will naturally become subservient to African people. You are God's first people, and as a result of that, you are God's chosen people. And until you realize that, you will never be free.
Did you hear that, sis? Did you hear that? All right, now y'all make sure you come on out and put my contact info up there so people can contact me. We need to link up and continue to link up with brothers like this here, because this is it, man. If we don't do this now, ain't gonna be no damn future.
That's right.
You know, there will not be a future for our generation. It's gonna be over with because of the one thing, and that's that homosexual movement. And it is a movement that will continue and continue and continue until it's just in every nook and cranny, in every household. It's going to be the way of life. They don't want to just be accepted. They want all of us to participate in this type of action, this type of sex act. And it's going to destroy us if we do not do something about it today. I'm not talking about tomorrow. You don't have time to wait.
We don't have time.
We don't have time to wait. Got to pool our resources together. People get ready, because you're going to start having to live with each other. All this damn animosity you've been having with each other. Sisters, y'all going to have to drop all of that. Brothers' egos, you got to drop all that. Hey, we're going to have to get this thing together. This is it. I want to thank you, brother, for coming on.
Thank you, brother. It's been a pleasure.
Make it happen,
yes,
man.
sir.